Hi, I'm Kawiak Jones, and welcome to the third part of my series about the fortified front of the Odra-Barta rivers. In today's episode, you will find out what was in our heavy backpacks and why they were worth carrying so many kilometers through narrow underground tunnels. This episode is not going to be as technical as the first one, but it will be full of adventure and exploration. Like the leg of the previous episode, this tunnel was flooded completely to the Nord Pole station. Fortunately, the water level has dropped, allowing us to visit this part of the complex without scuba gear. When we got to the end of the tunnel, we spotted a flooded area. The tunnel gently descended down, which meant the water level rose slowly along the tunnel, so that somewhere down the path the water would meet the ceiling. It was with great relief that we took off our backpacks and began to take out their contents. Each one of us carried a 25-kilogram inflatable stand-up paddle in our packs on which we planned to explore the inaccessible flooded parts of the undergrounds. They are designed to be stood on, but because of the low ceiling, we had to kneel and later lie flat on the boards. I will use this time which it takes to pump up these boards to tell you how this segment of the complex came to be flooded. This leg lies near the former military village, which was established in 1927 as a barracks complex for the Wehrmacht. After the war, a Polish garrison was stationed here until 1956, and from 1956 on, the Russian used this garrison for a communications unit of the Soviet Northern Army Group in charge of maintaining a permanent radio link between East Germany and Moscow. That's why Panzerwerk 730 was used as a foundation for radar dishes. In the vicinity, there were many entrances to the underground system, and these were used by Soviet soldiers who would sneak out of their base and, for example, trade with locals swapping canned meat for vodka. Most likely, this was the reason why this drainage tunnel was blocked. But there are many other theories about unknown tunnels under this village, which were flooded to hide something. The flooded tunnels have long been explored and mapped by divers, but they are still an attraction as not many locations offer the chance to dive 50 meters underground. After inflating our boards, we are ready to set off. I have to mention here that I have never been on such a board before, and the owner of both boards is Bogu, who runs the business renting them. I felt only partly confident, as I was well aware that if somebody gets wet underground, it will never dry there. If someone fell into the water and had to later sleep underground, as has happened to me many times, it means he would sleep in wet clothes, and in the morning he would have to push his wet socks into wet cold boots. After several dozen meters, we reached the first fork. Rowing was going badly, and water continued to splash on my feet. After a while, I had to kneel on a wet board. Fortunately, the tunnel goes so low that I am able to put aside my paddle and move myself by pushing my hands on the ceiling. Interestingly, there are photos of a friend of mine swimming in this section in only his bathing trunks. Respect to those guys! To our disappointment, we noticed that the tunnel was too narrow to rotate our board, and we later had to go back in reverse. This huge system was built on the principle of gravitational drainage, which apart from the areas where it was destroyed, continues to this day to work smoothly despite many clogged drainage wells. In the 1980s, there was talk of using this underground system as a dump for radioactive waste, somewhat like in my previous film about the Richard complex. But the authorities gave up on the idea when they realized that there was a risk that the entire system could be flooded with water from the nearby lakes, as the difference in water level reaches up to 15 meters, and then potentially contaminated water would find its way back to local villages and fields by the drainage system. When we reach the right leg, we pass a pipe which had an unknown purpose, and then our focus shifted to something hanging on a string in front of us. Quickly, we realize that it is a full condom. I can safely say that someone, and I do not know who it could be, had a good idea to deposit his semen in one of the most inaccessible parts of the complex. There are legends that say he had long dreadlocks and was so handsome that women even sought him out 40 meters below the ground. Respect for this completely unknown person. Without touching it, we bypass the condom and continue on our adventure. The ceiling is still descending, and I decided that it was time to lie on my board. It was fun, but I lost my flashlight. Well, not quite lost it. Rather, it fell out of my hand and I could see it underwater, but I did not have the slightest desire to dive in to rescue it. I have to tell you that it's an amazing feeling to float in such a place. There's a 40-centimeter gap between me and the ceiling, 2 meters of water under me, and a reinforced concrete ceiling above me, and on top of that 40 meters of sand and the whole village. It would definitely be better to scuba dive here, but I still do not have the right training or guts to swim underground, but I hope I'll try it one day. Our underwater recordings came out hopelessly, and for those who remain interested, I invite you to watch the film from 2011 when the whole flooded region was mapped. Swimming on our boards here gave us much pleasure, and for a while we even managed to forget about how far we have come and how far we have yet to go today. Slowly we head back to our not-so-dry harbor from where we had set off. We throw a last glance at the flooded tunnels, and condom, and then we float into the very shallow water. We are both wet from the knees down, cold, tired, and fearful as we are aware that so far all our efforts were not even the warm-up to what was still ahead of us. It was 10 p.m. on a Sunday, and our exit point is still over 3 kilometers away, and on Monday at 1 p.m. I had to be back at work, some 170 kilometers from the bunkers. Our backs ached so much that putting the boards back in our backpacks was not an option. Fortunately, we came up with the idea of using our trolley to carry the boards and thus giving our backs some relief. But this was not the ideal solution because we had to drag our cart for 3 kilometers to the exit. This solution allowed us to avoid reinflating the boards, because in the 4th episode we will still need them. This brings us to the end of this 3rd part of my Bunkerology series. I hope you will watch the 4th and final episode, where I will talk more about bed and breakfast possibilities underground, as long as you bring your own bed and breakfast along. I will also discuss the general concept of building the whole defense system. See you in the next episode!